everything changes.
Hey, you made it back for our 5th module. Welcome. Now, last time we discussed some of those core habits and lessons learned from that group of most efficient and confident marketers. And today we're going to drill down on those 4 pillars we discussed and really build on the importance of each one of those and discuss how to adapt your mindset and build some of those replacement behaviors. So let's get into it. Okay, here are those 4 pillars or philosophies that we laid out last time, which we identified as those beneficial habits in that 10% group. Now, each one has a deeper message to build out and connect with and work to understand. And I'll walk through these one by one, but remember, there's a need to become aware of our habits and then determine if we're achieving the outcomes we desire. And if not, we need to understand why and then need to develop replacement behaviors to achieve better results and work to intentionally replace those behaviors to find the benefit we want. So let's walk through these. First, of course, is that strategy versus outlook, making decisions in more of a strategic build rather than just opinion or what we feel should happen. And this is a core component to marketing success. Why strategy? Well, let's put it this way. Outlook is ripe with emotion, and you all know the risk of making emotional decisions, right? Even more concerning, though, is when those decisions involve something as important as your revenue or profitability. So making sure decisions are made with more of a strategy and a process rather than just emotions is certainly beneficial. Now think of in terms of like a sports team and how a team would prepare for its next opponent, right? Good teams will spend time strategizing all the possible outcomes that could unfold in the game and start to prepare some plans or contingency plans of how they'll adapt and adjust and overcome without knowing fully up front how the game will actually pan out. So that strategic approach is well known throughout history, and again, something that 10% Crew has really identified and adapted to their marketing. When you need to think about strategy, you need to also then work on replacing the emotions that come with marketing, right? Being prepared for anything and everything. And remember that conversation we had on confirmation bias? It certainly is in place here as well. So here is a replacement behavior starter, right? Whenever you think or say to yourself, I think or I feel the markets will do X, I want you to work on replacing that with I need to prepare for X, Y, and Z. Right? I really don't know what's going to happen next. Remember what happened last year? I want to make sure I'm prepared for every possible scenario. And as important, when you hear others that you work with or talk with, especially the professionals that you tune into for marketing advice, and when you hear them say something like, I think this will happen or this is what's going to happen, just tune it out, ignore it. No, just kidding. Actually, of course, take their opinion, focus on the data or the analysis that they're providing and referencing, but then develop an action strategy and plan and make sure you're preparing for other potential outcomes. Don't get stuck in the trap of fooling yourself into thinking that the professionals have an upper hand on predicting the future. We don't. We have strategy to prepare for everything, not just opinion. All right, moving on to the next one, of course, is the need to learn to manage our emotions and not just run with them. We know there's some other areas of life and business that rarely, if ever, do emotional decisions and reactions pan out to be truly beneficial. Usually we end up regretting our emotional decisions. So again, when it comes to something as important as revenue management, we need to make sure we're doing things to avoid just making emotional decisions. But then why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to separate our emotions as we're making decisions on our marketing? Well, we need to understand the triggers that are at play and consciously employ replacement behaviors that produce less emotional and more beneficial results. So here's our overall view and take on the market cycle of emotions. There's been a lot of research done on this over the years. Here's our take on it, and you can read through this yourself and study this, pause the video if you need to, and look at the different emotions we feel through different stages of the market price cycle, right? The peaks, the valleys, the transition periods in between. The biggest thing I want to point out is this, is that when everybody's the most euphoric and the markets are rallying and things are getting better and all the news you're hearing and the people you're talking to and everything you're experiencing is positive and bullish, it's easy to get into that euphoric stage that says things are high and keep going up, which is great if you're a producer, and it appears it's going to stay that way. So you get to be pretty euphoric. The issue here, though, and what I want to point out is the perception, when everybody's the most euphoric, is that there's no risk in the market of it going lower because, again, all the news is bullish and everything is being fed into the market. So the perception is there's no risk. When in actuality, from a market momentum and cycle standpoint, that's when you have your maximum risk or exposure of something coming through to set the market down. Why? Because it always does. Every rally comes to an end. I'm not saying you can outguess the exact day it's going to happen. Don't get me wrong there. But when everybody's the most euphoric and the perception is there's no risk, that's when we need to be thinking more strategically about defending risk. And vice versa. When we get to the bottom of the market, everybody's kind of in that panic and in capitulation or giving up state, and it almost gets to a point where everybody's hopeless because the markets are going down and all the news is bearish. Everybody's bearish. It seems there's no hope in the market. The perception, of course, is that there's no opportunity. I might as well give up now because it's going to keep on going lower, and I missed all this other opportunity as the market starts to slide. So again, perception, no opportunity. In reality, though, this is, of course, when there's a maximum opportunity of something coming through to adjust the market back higher. Again, why? Because it always does. So that group of effective and confident marketers, right, they're human and have emotions just like the rest of us. Yet they have identified replacement behaviors to help them not get caught up in that emotional decision-making trap. And we firmly believe that you need to break this cycle and manage with math and strategy and not just your emotion. So to further that point, I just want to pull out a few headlines just from last year's corn market range. And again, we could go back through year by year and cycle by cycle, and you'll see basically the same thing. And trust me, we've done the research. We've spent time looking at news stories at different points of the market, and then as the market changes, how those news stories change. But here's what I want to point out. Last year, coming into 2019, the corn market was pretty flat and sideways. A big crop the year before, expectations of another big crop with big potential acres and trendline yields on the rise. And the market was very flat and sideways, as you notice, coming from January into May. And here's we got at the end of April, with the acres report out, there was just a lot of negativity, right? Depressed grain markets equal depressed farmers, and a news story talking about how most producers didn't even want to look at their computer because there was no good news out there, and everything was going to keep being ugly in through summer with a huge crop. Then, of course, we got a surprise with some wet weather and delayed planting as the markets bottomed in mid-May. And we had that quick rally up about $1 in price into mid-June. But how quickly the focus in the news stories changed, because now you get here into mid-June and now all the news stories and a lot of the major headlines are all very bullish. And this one here, for example, says corn reaches for the next level of resistance at 515. Right? Now you think back early in the year, producers would have given their left arm to be able to price grain somewhere, 450, 470 futures. And now we get there, and of course the attitude is, well, it's not stopping here, it's going to keep going higher, so why would I price here? And of course, within a matter of a day or a week, the market topped out and we started heading lower. And as we got into August, the USDA even came out and said, prevent planted acres will reach a record of almost 20 million acres. Still giving people some bullish reasons to hang on for the next uptick in the market. Of course, it didn't happen. Point being is this: the news is going to feed into the worst of our emotions. It's telling us what we already know is in the marketplace and not helping us necessarily prepare for the change. And this is, again, one of those key habits and replacement behaviors that 10% group focused on, which is looking where risk is and looking where opportunity is, and not just focusing on the news and emotion. Now, as previously discussed, that effective group of marketers also focus on what really matters and replaced marketing with the concept of managing revenue. and focusing on how they're going to manage the revenue through the volatility. Now, we already discussed this in the strategic mindset module, so let this serve as a bit of a reminder that in order to really manage revenue, we need to have a quantifier or a benchmark. And what a better benchmark than your weighted average price and thus your revenue projections, right? Smooth out the volatility over time and try to keep yourself in check with the marketplace. In check with the ranges in the market with minimal separation from the top of the market, so you're seeing price improvement and advantage, and work to create maximum separation from your average price and those big troughs or big bottoms in the market. And making sure that the decisions are pre-planned and prepared and contingency plans are laid out. That's key, right? The strategic effective marketers focus on the end game throughout all their decisions, not just the decision, and they always look for an advantage over the market volatility. How do I protect myself from the potential drop? How do I make sure I'm keeping myself as close to the tops as possible? And where does that put my overall revenue or average price? All right, the next pillar is that market scenario planning, right? And that's our term for rehearsing the future, right? Following the old Boy Scout motto of always being prepared. Now, again, we discussed this in a previous module, so the point here is just to focus on the math and the numbers that are involved in good decision making, and your most important number, of course, which is your weighted average price. And the numbers and math don't lie, as we talked about, so it's important we're putting that focus as the key benchmark and the key to deciding factor of decisions we're going to make, right? Math and numbers are involved in most, if not all, of the important decisions you make for your operation, so the same should apply to your marketing and revenue management. Focusing on managing revenue by view of your weighted average price, taking time to rehearse the future and know the impact of potential decisions and how to balance out the right level being priced, being hedged, what the impact, the market move impact will have on your unpriced portion, and wrapping it all into one nice number that's a reflection of your total crop's worth at any given point in time. Right? The fact is this: math doesn't lie. Math trumps guessing and outlook, and math helps tame emotion. I think you get the theme here. Use math all the time. So the effective and confident marketing group proved that scenario planning with math over various outcomes and contingency plans made a huge difference in their results and also their attitudes. It gave them confidence by having control over their decisions and thus their revenue. Okay, sticking with that same theme of market scenario planning and math, I want to show you and detail out what it looks like to rehearse the future with math and determine the best possible decision for any market outcome. Now, this work is important and time-consuming, but important. Pen, paper, calculator, more paper, you can do it on your own, longhand. Our team, though, has developed an elaborate spreadsheet calculator to make this more of a plug-and-play method, keeping the effort very efficient. Yet again, using pen and paper works as well if you have the time. I said, let's look at this quick kind of breakdown, and I'll explain as I walk through it. But this is a snapshot of kind of the end result of this calculator and how powerful this can be. As you look at this across the top in the red, that's just some different, price scenarios. What if corn, this is the corn example, what if corn goes to $2 or we go to $7? And down the left-hand side are different strategy choices we could implement or maybe have implemented. But this gives us the ability to kind of plug and play with different percentages, different price targets, different option positions to really see then inside the graph what overall weighted average price we can achieve. And again, weighted average price is just that. Across 100% of the production, what are you averaging for a price? All these prices are futures price references. We keep basis out of the equation at this stage. So everything we see here will be futures related. So let me quickly walk you through this. Down the left-hand side, what if we have a chance to sell 30% of our production at a 446 futures average price? Well, then by law of math, we have 70% of our production that's open or unpriced. When you wrap the two numbers together, you can see that your weighted average price, if we head up to $6, is $5.54. If we head down to $3, is $3.44. So you can see there's an advantage in the down market above the market price of $3, and yet if we rally, you're still within 50 cents of the top of the market. So you're keeping check with the rally, giving up a little bit, but still appreciating in a pretty good fashion. Same thing at $7, having a $6.24 average price. This helps us and helps producers not focus on one sale and then have the market rally and look back at that sale with regret by thinking, geez, I wish I wouldn't have sold. In a perfect world, that would be the case, but obviously here we can quantify it by saying really how far behind the market are we. It helps keep the overall picture in perspective. Then, of course, we can also look, and where it becomes even more valuable is when we look at some option positions. And I know the horror stories with options is, hey, I bought a put option and I lost money on it. Well, true in some cases, but I guess the question is, what were you buying the put option for? If you're buying it for downside coverage, do you really want to make money in that put option? Because that, of course, means the market falls apart. But let's look at the true impact of a decision with an option in terms of your weighted average price. So let's say we can add this second decision here to the first one. We have 30% sold at 446 futures average price. Could be on a hedge to arrive or a straight contract. What if I want to cover another 20% of my production, but I want to use a put option? Well, by law of math, if we cover another 20% with a put option, then we have 50% of our crop covered to the downside, yet the put option has a fixed cost, in this case of 16 cents a bushel, so I still have that grain physically unpriced and open for upside appreciation. Now I can look at the true impact of that 16 cents on my weighted average price. Again, coupling these two decisions together, rerun the weighted average price, and I realize that even though I'm paying 16 cents a bushel on 20% of my production, when I factor that through to 100% of my production, it's only a 3 cent give up on my weighted average price, right? $5.54 without the put, $5.51 with the put. So yes, I'm spending 16 cents on 20%, but it's really only hampering my overall average price by 3 cents if the market rallies. And of course, I would probably rather have $5.51 average price and have my revenue based off of $5.51 futures versus $3.61 if we happen to head lower. I'd be glad I had the put option in place if we did head down to $3 because I'm gaining an advantage over not having it. It's helping stabilize my average price and pick myself away or keep myself away from the lows. But of course, in reality, I would much rather have a $5.51 average price. So it helps put in perspective the cost of a position and what you're really getting for it. Now here's the beauty of this. We can plug and play these different strategy choices before we make a recommendation or before we make a decision to do something and see what's going to give us the best overall bang for our buck and what's going to keep us in the best possible position no matter what the market does. So it's all about using math. And like we said before, numbers don't lie, and this is a really helpful process and tool to make sure decisions the decisions are looked at in its totality against weighted average price, and you prepare yourself for what to expect. So this is what that group of effective and confident marketers use, and something we've used for many years now, and really try to help point other producers towards the power of this. Again, longhand can be done. Using a very elaborate spreadsheet calculator makes it much more of an efficient process. Okay, I gave you a lot to digest. Again, what I would certainly recommend is if any of this is fuzzy, it doesn't quite sit right, go back through, rewatch the module, and really hone in on some of those replacement behaviors. But again, managing emotions, using math, and using that focus on weighted average price are really some core concepts and philosophies that create a huge difference. I know it sounds subtle, but these all add up in that group, and were expressed with that group of 10% of effective and confident marketers to really be what they're building all their decisions on. Very important stuff, very impactful. Again, I hope you can take time to learn it and adjust and build in some replacement behaviors. All right, in the next module, I'll expand a little bit on the it's all about math concept with an example and some math in terms of the impact a good strategic approach can have and how to keep your focus and adapt some of those beneficial behaviors. So there we are. We're halfway through the overall approach and modules by finishing up the 5th one here. I certainly hope you're finding value and it's helping you build more of a strategic mindset. That's the goal. And again, like I said, as subtle as some of these points sound, they all add up to really give you better clarity and better positioning. So please reflect on those 4 pillars and some of the replacement behaviors we mentioned and see what other ideas you can come up with. Our contact information will be in the next slide. And again, certainly reach out to us if you have questions or thoughts. And until next time, be safe, be well, and be mindful of those core philosophies.
Everything changes.